This is the Foxhole Podcast.
My next guest is a judo master, a Rokudan, or 6th Dan black belt in judo and jujitsu. He trained under the famed, well-known, and highly respected master Zdenek model. He is a father of 2 great kids. Now they're young adults. He's a small business owner and one of the most humble and hardworking people I have ever met. He currently owns his own dojo in Round Rock, Texas. That's just outside of Austin. Through that dojo, he trains all levels of judokas. He also volunteers a lot of time toward training and guiding law enforcement and first responders in self-defense and protection. Give it up for none other than Chad Haas. Chad, welcome to the Foxhole Podcast. Man, it is a tremendous pleasure for me to have you on here. I've been thinking about all the things I wanted to talk to you about when you got on here for a number of reasons. But anyway, welcome to the Foxhole Podcast.
Man, it's awesome. I'm super excited to be here with you, man.
So what I wanted to do today was talk about martial arts in the context of growth and a little bit about your journey too in martial arts and to set the scene a little bit. I met you, I don't know, gosh, it was probably in 2007 or 2008 time period, maybe even a little bit later, but close to that. And I was looking for a martial art. I was looking for a place to do judo or jujitsu or something like that, right? That was really hands-on. I was looking for something hands-on. And I don't know if you remember this, but I started calling around and I contacted your gym. It was Sensei Model and you there. And I think, I don't know who I talked to first. It may have been Sensei Model. It may have even been some email exchanges and said, we're at this gymnastics place. Show up here. And I just wanted to watch because I was really cautious. I wanted to go to the right place. I wanted to make sure it was the right fit for me. And so I showed up it was a Thursday night or something. And I showed up at the gymnastics place. Well, you guys were working out in the loft of the gymnastics place, all the gymnastics downstairs. Well, there were other people that worked out there too. No one ever told me you were in the loft. You were just at the gymnastics place. So I showed up there. There was also another martial arts group that met on the floor of the gymnastics place, and they were a ninja team. I don't even know what else to call them. They were like ninjas. And so that's who I showed up thinking I was meeting, right? So I sat down on the bench. I was watching the ninjas, and I'm like, I don't think this is for me, man. And the whole time I'm there, I was there probably 15 minutes. I'm hearing this racket, like thud noises, slamming, all kinds of just racket, right?
Yeah.
Like a fight was happening somewhere. And I finally got up to leave the gym because I knew that the ninja thing wasn't for me. And as I was leaving the gym, I saw someone coming in the door in a gi and going upstairs. And then I put 2 and 2 together. I was like, oh, maybe that's the judo jujitsu place up there. So I went up there, and then that was it. I met you, I met Sensei Model, and that was that. I'm like, oh, this is where I need to be. And that thudding noise, that was people getting tossed around up there and people getting grinded on. I'm like, that's what I need right there. That's what I want. So that's how we met. Right? That's how we met.
Yeah, and it's funny because the ninjas must not have been doing too good of a job if you could see them.
That's right.
Because,
it wasn't smoke and mirrors, right? Anything happening.
I can't help a good ninja joke,
Right. Will you just explain what is judo? Where did it come from? What's it all about? Maybe just a quick overview.
Yeah. So judo came from traditional Japanese jujitsu, which is the art that the samurai used to use. Basically what Kano had done, Kano is the founder. He was studying under a lot of different traditional jiu-jitsu masters. And so what he did, he says, we can't practice a lot of this stuff full speed because the techniques are dangerous. You can only throat strike somebody so many times and break their arms and legs so many times before you run out of training partners. So what he had done is he had stripped away a lot of the really dangerous things and basically come up with judo, and and that's pretty much how it came to be. Now, judo, old traditional judo, is basic striking, basic punches and kicks, uh, throwing, the art of throwing, and then you continue on the ground to a conclusion, which would be a submission on a joint, or uh, which would be a lock, or choking, where you could put the person unconscious through blood restraint. And that's essentially what it was. What it's transformed into is something a little bit different. They've really stripped away the striking components and the ground fighting component for the sake of Olympic sport. And
Mm.
that's a shame, but that's kind of what it is today. We still
Yeah.
do the traditional stuff, and that's what makes us really different.
So there's the jujitsu, where judo came from, and then there's this sort of sport judo that the Olympics are based on. But what you're doing in your gym is this sort of traditional jujitsu, right?
Yes, yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, we focus a lot more on the throwing and the ground component, because it's so much more difficult to learn than to punch and kick somebody. Because I believe, through my training over the years, I believe that we have an innate ability to punch and kick. Like a baby, or a little child, they know how to ball up their hand and hit something. But what's not natural, what's not normal, is to get in personal with somebody, grab them, throw them down, continue that interaction on the ground. That's not necessarily normal. So we focus a lot of that outside of when we're doing our self-defense stuff or weapon disarms or things like that.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit, maybe just in a little bit down the line here, some of the work you're doing with law enforcement and first responder training. I was part of some of that when I
Mm-hmm.
was working out with you. I want to read you a quote that I read recently, and maybe just have you respond to this, because I think it kind of gets at what you guys are doing in your gym and your dojo is really amazing, because it's not just you come here for a workout, you come here for a sport. It is a philosophy, it is a way of life, it is yeah, it is a whole practice, right? And anyway, here's the quote, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is interesting, right? I don't fear a man who's practiced 10,000 throws or chokes or locks, whatever you want to have it is, right? I don't fear a man who does 10,000 of those things. I fear a man that has practiced one of these 10,000 times. And I think that in terms of the philosophy in your dojo, right? It's one of the things that it was the fundamentals, the basics, just master the basics. And you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. And that quote really is spot on. I think it was Bruce Lee who's coined that.
Is that
But
his quote?
that's the
Let me
yeah
give him
yeah
credit.
because yeah I believe so, yeah, because it was I don't fear a man who can do 1,000 kicks. I can fear a man who can do one kick 1,000 times. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
uh, it's the basics that win. The basics, basics, basics. Because when you get down to it, anything that's advanced is built off of fundamental movements. And if you don't have a grasp of those fundamentals, you can never truly do the advanced stuff. Um, I call it, some of the people that come in from the BJJ community, they say, oh, well, show me the trick, show me this or that. And it's like, look, you need to know how to shrimp. You need to know how to build basic structure. You need to know some very basic things. And I said, well, no, show me this lock or this choke or this submission. And I said, well, yeah, I can show it to you, but you're going to be a one trick pony, because you don't have a foundation that you're working off of. And so we do, that's why we do a lot of very, very basic things. And, Sensei used to always say, it's got to be safe, simple, and effective. And, while he didn't necessarily have a strong grasp of the English language and all the, and all the words and whatnot, that's, that's, uh, that's a pretty powerful statement just on
Yeah.
its face. And so that's what we really push for. We can do the super crazy spinning ninja throw and whatever, but I tell guys, why would I do that when I can do something with half the effort, and maybe I don't expose myself to being countered or whatnot? I would much rather do that. If I can get away with pushing you down like you're a little kid, that's what I'm going to do,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm using the least amount of energy and being the most effective in that time. And that's what the core principle of what really judo is supposed to be. But it's all about basics. And when I fight with a BJJ black belt, um, almost every single time I fight with them, I do nothing but basic things. That's all I'm doing. I don't always win, but well, neither do they. They don't always win either. Um, but I definitely I use basic fundamental movements, fundamental principles and strategies. And then when an opportunity shows up, then I go and I grasp that opportunity in that moment. But outside of that, it's all 101 stuff. And the best, the best fighters in the world, whether it's boxing, wrestling, MMA, whatever, the best fighters in the world, they do 101 stuff. That's what they win. 101 stuff. And
Yeah.
occasionally they'll throw in something crazy, but that's,
Yeah.
those are all like one-off things.
So I've had this conversation 1,000 times with 1,000 different people that are experts.
Mm-hmm.
They do, right? From cybersecurity experts to Navy SEAL experts to judo experts, jujitsu experts. And it's not surprising that they say the same thing. You have to master the basics. And it's all about the basics. And everything else is a nuance of the basic. And
Mm-hmm.
I found that to be the case in mastering our own selves, right? You can kind of master what you think the enemy is, if you will, if you're thinking about it in a combat setting. But mastery of self is where true power is. And that's what I really love about judo and jujitsu, is that there's a lot of this mastery of self that is kind of pre-programmed into the process, right? You really have to master your own movements, your own philosophies of how you're going to do it. And there's a whole lot of creativity in the process. And that's the other thing that's probably
Mm-hmm.
not well thought about, right? But it's all about mastery of self. And so one of the things that you guys did and do is this repetition, right? If you learn it, you're learning a basic skill, and then you continually drill that over and over, because and what I loved about being with you guys is there was always this, okay, I'm going to stop you right here, Gabe, and it's not this angle, but this slight other angle, right? It's very minor details that are all so important. And I wonder if you'd talk a little bit about that
Mm-hmm.
philosophy in in your dojo, and how you and what the reasoning is behind that.
Yeah, you know, uh, we really try to drill those things to the point where we can have, we can be training and we can have a complete conversation about something not even related to training at the same time, but yet still be pulling off good repetitions. And then when I feel something that's out of whack, kind of what you were saying, I'll stop them and say, hey, look, okay, so you need to change your foot from here. You need to turn it, 45 degrees. And and a lot of times that'll fix, whatever their problems are. And then we'll go back after we drill that specific thing a little bit. We'll go back to whatever it was we were talking about. But the reason those details, you know, it's amazing because we're basically doing physics with the body. And when we're fighting, I equate it to trying to solve a Rubik's cube, but the cube is actively changing its colors to prevent you from solving it.
Right. It has a counter move.
It's got a counter, and it's always trying to mess you up. Um, and so, those details, when we teach stuff initially, I can't show those details because it's information overload. People they just gloss over and shut down. And so we'll give them the, real crude 1, 2, 3, 4, how to do a movement. And then from there, we come back in and we insert these bits and pieces. And then as they get comfortable and the 1, 2, 3, 4 is automatic, now we add in more. And then we just build on top of that to where they're hitting all of these little finer points. I call them waypoints. They're hitting the waypoints without really much thought at all. And I tell them, when we're ground fighting, the whole process is very slow. It's like an anaconda eating its prey. It's very slow. But when you're on your feet, you can go from having a super dominant position to in the air in, I don't know, like a third of a second.
Yeah.
And
I'm flying.
That's fast. That's a fast exchange. And and I've got some videos where it happened. The exchange happened so fast I had to go back and count the frames and look at it frame by frame. And um, so that's why we drill those. We build into those details. That's why we do that, but we ease into it instead of just like putting it all in at once. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think after I was with you guys for a little while, I started to kind of take this from the dojo, right? That this repetition creates memory, muscle memory, and that repetition also creates habit. And then I started to use those things in my day-to-day life too, and employ those. And I've been on this journey for a long time of just self-improvement, right? And whatever it happens to be. And I just saw all these parallels between what was going on in the dojo with what was going on in my life and what was going on at work, and just my own improvement. And that repetition was an important thing, right? That it continued repetition of the right way, the right action, the right movement, the finite pieces created memory so that it became automatic, right? And then that repetition also created habit, and that habit was important to sustain movement forward after that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the principles that judo is founded on, which are to, not fight power with power, to redirect power, to, to be, smart about what you're doing and not just rush in, throw caution into the wind and go. I've been able to use those exact same principles and philosophies in my personal and professional life very successfully. And so, for me, running into Sensei Model has been, completely life changing for me. And I wonder often what kind of person I would be had I not run into him, had I not met him, had I not just immediately fallen in love with with what he's doing. Um, it's truly incredible, and like I said, it's been life changing for me. And I've seen my students come in as one kind of person and just completely transform into something completely different in a positive way.
Yeah.
And man, that's for me, that's what it's all about, because since they did that for me, and I try to do what I can to do that to other people.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how challenging they are. What their issues are, it makes no difference to me. Don't really care. I just want to I want to help people improve and see the world differently. You know,
Mhm.
you grow up believing that the world functions in a certain way, like, oh, the only way you can be powerful is if you do weights and you run fast, you're like this very athletic person. Then they come here and we completely destroy that. You completely shatter that entire perception of how the world works. That no, you don't have to be the titan to be the one on top. You don't have to be the super fit, elite athlete to be effective against somebody. And that's really mind blowing for a lot of people when they come in and get to experience that.
Yeah, because I think, the impression, and some martial arts are kind of force on force, right? You meet it
Yeah.
that way, and judo and jujitsu are different. And I'll say this, like, I don't know if I ever told you this. Like, I was on vacation. This was the time I was training with you. I'd gone on vacation to Colorado, and I didn't want to miss doing judo one day, right? So I took my gi. I found a place, and we were staying at my sister-in-law's house, and I found a place that I'm like, I'm gonna go work out with these guys. I'd arranged ahead of time to go there, and I didn't realize it until later. But that gym was trained. There was an Olympic athlete, judo athlete that was training out of that gym, and so they were all geared to sport judo. Well, I showed up there with this completely different mindset, and I didn't. What those guys were doing was they had just a bunch of heavy mats, and they would just practice yanking each other around.
Yeah.
It was that force on force, right? And then it came time to like the time of the class. They broke it down into like throws and then nawaza, like groundwork. It came time to that groundwork, and it was like I was getting tossed around, right? Because it was all just force. It wasn't technique. It was
Mm-hmm.
just how much force can you put on this. And it wasn't, again, not a technique. And then so I was getting thrown around because you were practicing throwing people around. Came to the ground time, it's a whole different story. They were trying to use force, and you really see it there, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just about technique and position and chess and all these other things. But what I think one of the big things that I gained, Chad, from the time that I spent with you guys was that judo and martial arts, I think in general, kind of really help you overcome hardships because you're always doing hard things. And the hard thing might be feeling your opponent's energy, right? That you're not meeting it force on force. That the hard thing might be just sensing your opponent, where they're going, where the pressure is coming from and where the pressure is not, because maybe that's where you move to. I wonder if you
Mm-hmm.
know a little bit about that. Like this art of being gentle, feeling the gentle piece so that you can leverage that against your opponent. And that's important in life, right? You have that all the time. Like you're gonna meet no one's gonna meet their boss head on, right? Force on force, because it's not gonna go well. But
Yeah.
you might understand where the gentle piece is, right? And that's the hardship. That's doing the hard thing. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday about doing hard things, and he was talking about being gentle. I'm like, yeah, that's really hard to do. Especially for guys. We don't think about it that way.
No, no. Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's one of the huge challenges that students have whenever they're kind of coming up through the training is I have to tell them, hey, um, man, I know this guy who's got 80 pounds on you. I know he's like grinding you into the floor, but you need to try to relax and move over here, and you need to try to because there's no way you're going to overpower that guy. And actually, Derek actually got my son. He got to see exactly this while preparing for his competition. We have another fairly new student who's strong, 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 real fit, young. I think he's like 24 or something, super fit, really strong. And he was fighting with Derek, and Derek was fighting him. And he said, "Oh man, I'm just having a hard time." I said, "Well, yeah, you're fighting him muscle on muscle. You can't do it. He's bigger than you. He's heavier than you. He's stronger than you. He's more fit than you. You simply can't do it. What you have to do is you have to find a way to relax, which is super hard to do. Like you said, for men, it's extraordinarily hard for us to relax when being aggressed upon, because, well, we're hardwired to fight back. We're just hardwired to fight back. and and so I guess we talked about it some more. I gave him some little things that he could do, um, in terms of, accepting somebody's, aggression, and then just kind of redirecting it, or, accepting it and say, okay, well, that was awesome, man. Good job. And then you turn it around on them, or just get out of the way. But the next time, the next time they were both in class, he fought with him again. And he goes, and he did really well. He said, man, the other guy got super tired. I was I was actually okay. I'm not as tired. I could outlast him. And I was able to see everything he was doing. I could see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so working with, trying to deal with, that head on force, you you just can't win if unless you're bigger, you can't win. So, doing hard things. I mean, that's one of them. It's like, how do I go fight with this guy, and, not try to impose my will in a training environment, right? In a training environment, competition is a little bit different, right? You're fighting a clock, you're fighting these other things. But how do you go do that? And it's a tough thing. Now, I one of the things that I tell the students is that you can always learn. You don't have to be the aggressor. You don't have to be the one, quote unquote, winning to learn. Sometimes you learn far more by being the one receiving the information. An example of that was, I went to go visit. I went to go visit a school in the Killeen area, and there's a guy there. He was not happy with me over some Facebook stuff, which is a whole nother story. And he wanted to, quote unquote, roll hard with me. And he's a BJJ brown belt. He's taller than me. He's a little bit heavier than me. Um, and so one of my students, is a family who they come down from Killeen and train. They were there, they were watching, and they said, oh, he's here. He wants to roll with you. I said, okay. Well, I just finished rolling with the head of the school, who's a black belt, and we had this great exchange, and it was super awesome. We had a lot of fun. So now I'm going to get this guy who really wants to put it on me. And I'm just like, this is what I'm going to do. And I do this pretty frequently, but all I did was, one of the things he said he was going to do when he was talking trash to some of the students was that he was going to leg lock me, because his judo guys don't know anything about leg locks. The first thing he did was try to grab my legs, and I shut that down like in half a second, which was pretty funny. But then after that, I sit back, I let him do what he wants. I let him work. I let him get me. He chokes me, he arm locked me, and I just let him do what he wants. The whole purpose behind that is, which is hard, the purpose behind it is to see what he likes to do, steal his playbook. I stole what he likes to do. I didn't offer anything up, other than a little bit of defense, a little movement here and there. I didn't offer anything back. When you don't offer heavy resistance, they'll give you everything. They'll show you everything. And so my students, they were like, oh man, oh yeah, he's really good. He should be a black belt. I go, hey, it's okay. Had a big mark across my face from where where it was on my nose, big bruise on my nose where he was trying to choke me. And I said, it's okay. I'm not there to impress him. I'm not there to impress anybody. He wants to fight. I let him do what he wants to do. But the next time we move around, I know what he likes to do. I know what he wants to do. I know how he acts. I know how he responds to things. But he doesn't know anything about me. He's still under the impression that he can do what he wants to. And I never offered up anything offensive. And so It's art of war, you know. You don't necessarily show your hand, especially when someone is being combative with you, but you're not necessarily in a combative situation where you have to perform. Because if it was a real fight, oh, this is totally different. We're doing things totally different. But it's not. It's a form, you know, it's a, I guess, aggressive training.
Yeah.
But that's what makes, you know, what I tell the students is this is what makes you able to read people. Because if I fight with this guy and he does what he does, and then I go to another gym and I fight with someone else, they do their thing, I can start looking at the commonalities between each of these people. And then you can say, well, gosh, most schools teach techniques this way, teach movements this way. So again, it's going, and it's not fighting force on force, but you're taking their playbook. Because if you don't offer up a lot of defense, people do what they're most comfortable with first. Like, oh man, I'm just going to do this now because you're not doing anything,
Yeah.
or I don't feel that um, I don't feel that you're really that much of a challenge, or I don't know, whatever it is that they want to justify it in their head. But at the end of the day, I can take that information and I can work with the information. I can teach the students. We can build off of that. And now we're building this, how to deal with this person or that person, or this style of fighter or that style of fighter.
I see.
And, um, and so it's, it gets back to kind of what you were saying or asking about, doing things that are hard, as opposed to just going and smashing the wall all the time, always going 100,000% all the time. You know, doing those, working this way teaches you how to be controlled under not duress, but stress, high levels of stress. Someone's trying to choke you. How do you handle that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you freak out, well, you're just freaking out and you're still getting choked.
Freaking out doesn't change the situation.
It doesn't change it, but this also allows you to learn that, man, I'm still here. The guy was smashing me for 5 minutes. He's got his knee on my head and it just sucks. But he never got a choke. He never got a lock. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still functioning.
I see. So you were just defending all of these things that he was doing while you're cataloging everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that, I think what you're kind of getting at here too is, this is a part of this process is the growth of your own dojo, right? You're learning about, and this is a question I wanted to ask you too, because what dawned on me, having been with you guys and then visited several other dojos as I was traveling and wanting to do judo, the differences between each of those places was amazing, right? Like there wasn't like a common, they just called it judo. It was like, this isn't the judo or jujitsu I know. And I mentioned the place in Colorado, but there were other places that I visited too where they hadn't evolved, right? There was no evolution in technique. And there was a holding on to tradition, probably not for the right reasons. And so one of the things that I appreciated much later after I left the area was the ability for the dojo, your dojo, to grow and evolve. And I'll say this, do what works. There was always this desire to do what works. Right? Someone came in and said, hey, I tried something else. And what about this? Either you or Sensei Model was like, well, let's look at it. And if there was a better way of doing it, then there's evolution. We're going to change. We're going to adapt a little bit. There was always that, while maintaining the traditions and histories and ceremonies that sort of go with judo, because there was some of that too. We always counted in Japanese, and we're warming up and those sorts of things. So there was this really nice balance of preservation of history and ceremony with doing shit that works.
Mm-hmm. I think, uh, I think this is one of the things that's absolutely amazing about what Sensei Model has done, because he has taken input from me on different techniques, self-defense as well as judo techniques, and says, yes, this is good. Now we change it and we do it this way from now on. And I say, well, gosh, I was having a problem with this person, and this is what I did to solve that problem. And I just wanted your feedback. Is it good or is it bad? Should I make changes? And it's a really, really cool thing for him to just say, we do this now. That's going to be going forward. That's what we're doing. We're doing it like that. And now with him, it's been super awesome because he's so open, because he says, like, look, his thing is, does it follow the principle of judo? Number one. Two, are you using too much force?
Mm.
Are you using too much speed? If it's any one of the, if you're using too much force or too much speed, it sucks. It's not good. Go back to work. If it follows the principles and the mechanics are right, in other words, the physics of it, if they're correct, then you're going to be good. And you should be able to do all techniques slow, with the exception of a few that, like a sacrifice or something where you're required to throw your body in order to complete the technique.
Right.
But you should be able to do all of it slow and controlled, and it still work. Um, I think that a lot of schools, unfortunately, I think what they do is they parrot. Well, I was told to do it this way, and my instructor was told to do it. And I don't question my instructor. My instructor doesn't question theirs. And it just goes down that
Yeah, you
way.
get stuck in that thing, and someone's going to come up with a counter. Someone's going to come up with some other thing of doing it, and if you're not
Yeah.
willing to evolve, and that's what I appreciated about you guys so much, is that, to kind of echo what you said about Sensei Model. Here I was, Jack nobody, showing up there, and every time we would talk about defensive tactics, my ears would kind of perk up, and I would offer a problem because I was good at offering problems. And typically he would have a solution, but a lot of times he heard me out, right? Like, all right, well, let's look at this, right? Well, what about this? And you do this, and you can change it this way. But it was just clear that, in other places, like, well, it's because we've always done it that way, and that's the way you're going to do it. Well, that doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I mean, I personally have had a huge evolution in between what he taught me and then what I do in terms of gripping and counter gripping, because I've got small hands. He's got huge hands. We're like the same size, but he's got huge hands. I now have arthritis in all of the last digits on both hands, all the last digits. I have arthritis in them. So, and that's from all of the years of gi gripping and having it forcefully ripped open, because I'm always fighting big dudes.
Yeah.
But now I have I have a different gripping style, where one of my favorite things to do to people is someone will come in who has experience, and I'll say, okay, make your favorite grip on me, and I'm going to break your grip down without ever tearing your hands out of place or attacking your hands, trying to rip your hands off. I'm going to completely take control of you without ever breaking your hands off. And people make their grip. I do my thing, and I say, I can go here, I go there, and I show them all the different things that I can do from that, whatever grip it is that they make. And usually they can't believe it. They're beside themselves. And I was showing this, and this goes back to what you were talking about, Sensei being just so open and flexible. But he was doing a seminar. He says, hey, I want you to come down. We have some people coming in, and we have a national champion. We have these different people coming. So they came in, and he said, I want you to help me teach. So I'm going around, I'm helping teach. And then somebody had a question one of them had a question about grip or something. I said, well, here, this is what I do. And I was showing, and then the next thing I know, Sensei standing kind of off my shoulder a little bit. He's just standing there listening. I turn around and say, "Oh, I'm sorry. We were talking about gripping. They had some question and I got us off track." And he said, "No, it's okay. We're going to take 10-minute break. We come back. You're going to teach everybody your gripping style because I don't do this. I don't do this. I don't do it this way, but this is very effective. It's very good." And so we came back from the thing, and now I'm in his seminar doing a 30-minute segment on counter gripping and gripping, where, and to me, it was such an odd feeling, because here you have the answer man who's been doing judo 50 years
Right. Right.
saying, "I don't do this. I've never seen this. I want you to teach it." Uh, but in most dojos, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
That that
Well,
does that doesn't happen.
there's a lot of, in judo especially, there's a lot of gi gripping, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that. And I know from working out with you, I was not really interested in the gi gripping because I knew that anything that I was probably ever going to get myself into was going to involve, a no gi, like
Mm-hmm.
plain clothes. And you always had this no gi grip, like, for example, you like to grab me around the neck, from the back of the neck, and there's a little crook, and you're really good at grabbing. You grab the little crook in my wrist, right? You knew all these anatomical spots to grab me where you got
Mm-hmm.
grip. And even though I was working out with Sensei Model and you in the evenings, there were a lot of weekends and lunchtime workouts that you and I had, and I started
Mm-hmm.
picking up these things. I don't know if I ever told you this story. So it was like, sometime down the road, and one of the older students of Sensei Model had come back to do a workout in the gym and in the dojo, and I ended up working with him, right? Because he was like an advanced black belt, and I was like, a nobody, and and that's what Sensei Model typically would do, right? Match the guys up who know what they're doing with the guys who don't. So the black belt's responsibility is to protect both. And
Mm-hmm.
here I am grabbing this guy, and he said, "It's like I'm fighting Chad." What he didn't know is that, I'd been picking all these little nuances up from you, right? And he was like, "You move like Chad, and you have a way of like just directing someone's body before you get it in a kind of little circular motion before you get them at an angle." And I know because I'd been in that position many times. I'd been at the vulnerability of Chad's movement many times and found myself, by the time you find it's too late, you're like, "Well, shit, I'm on my way out."
Yeah.
So I want to that point, because I think there's something that jujitsu and judo bring to the table for people that is missing. Um, I think in their lives, right? And it addresses a problem, and for me, it was my ego, and that's what I'm talking about, right? Here I am standing upright, and then 2 seconds later, it's like something's gonna hurt in a few seconds because I'm gonna hit the ground. The other thing was with my ego was you pretty much lose that ego when someone's grinding on your face, or choking you with your own material of your of your own gi, right? You can't, every time you take a breath, it's like material coming into your mouth, while they're laughing at you, and his name is Chad, doing that. So that's just a practice of that. It's this panic mode. I'm in panic mode. I can't breathe. I'm slowly fading. I'm being choked out, and and my ego is long gone at that point. I have to find a way to kind of come out of this and survive. I have to find a way to, as you said earlier, just those so slow, subtle movements. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, this idea of ego in martial arts, and especially in judo and Nawaza, because there you really, someone sticks it to you.
Yeah. And really, that ties into what I was talking about earlier about shattering people's perceptions of how the world works. Because there's two things that we're absolutely going to do. We're going to completely invade your personal space. That's number one. Whether you're on your feet or on the ground, we're going to completely be in your personal space. And for a lot of people, that's just that alone is very difficult to deal with. Um, and then two, having that ego, right? You get guys that come in here that are very fit, they're very strong, big, and then I pick them up, and as soon as they leave the ground, they completely freak out. I can feel their body stiffen up like a 2x4. And it's like, hey, relax. I'm not going to drop you, you know? And it freaks them out. They freak out the second time when you actually do it while you're fighting and moving around. But the thing is, the beauty of it is it humbles you in such a way that you understand that the whole thing that you can't judge a book by its cover. It makes it so true. You see Sensei Model in the grocery store, you're like, I'm taking out the old man. And then you're going to realize until when it's way too late that, oh my God, I made a huge mistake, and so that's one of it's an amazing thing, and something I try to teach my kids and some of the younger students who are not even in adulthood yet, or they're maybe very young adults. I tell them that you know other martial arts like the striking arts, you have a sense of power, but it's based off of your size, your speed, your strength, whatever. But when you're grappling with somebody, you that is it's exponential, because someone says, oh, there's no way this 100 130 150 pound or whatever person's going to actually take me down. If I don't want you to take me down, you can't actually do it. You get some guy who's like 280 pounds and he's like, oh, you ain't taking me down, it's impossible. And then I sweep the feet right out from under him, or I pick him up and throw him over the top of me. And he's just like, you see it in their face, they're completely like, what the hell happened? What in the world just happened? Do it again. But you can't do that again.
Right. Everyone wants to show me the trick one more time.
Yeah, do that again. Let me see again. Do it again, and they just, okay, do it again. Do it again. Okay, wow. And then you could see in their head, you just see it going. The gears are going 1,000 miles an hour. They're trying to figure out, how is this possible? Now, sometimes I'm joking with them, and I tell them, oh, it's magic,
Right. It's almost like it's not reality, because it shattered their perception of what was possible.
Yes, that's exactly right. And, but very, very quickly they learn, okay, I can't just assume I'm going to be able to take out everybody, because then when they get out in public, they say, well, gosh, well, what does this guy know? What does that guy know? Maybe that person trains. I don't know, and it really just changes your perception of, just like I said, how the world works. And you talk about, fixing people's egos. Oh my gosh. It just humbles people so much. Now, a lot of it has to do with how I carry myself. If I carry myself in a very, aggressive, I'm going to take you out, I'm the alpha kind of way, then people will respond back in kind. And then you have this like power struggle, right? I usually try to present myself as very, as relaxed as possible. Oh yeah, hey, come play with us. Yeah, if you want to get on the mat, you can totally come and you can throw me down, you can squish me, you can do whatever. Yeah, you'll be fine, no problem. And then it invites people, and then they get to ease them into showing them what this is all about, and how how you can use physics and timing and these incredible techniques and movements to body out. And it's a beautiful thing to watch that exchange happen. And I see this a lot when I teach at the police academy. We'll have some big guy He's just back from overseas. He's from the military. He's out. He's like super fit, 8% body fat, just like this freak of nature. And
I think I fought that guy.
and they and he would be it happens like every time he would be blocking the other cadets from practicing their techniques. He's resisting the string of techniques. So I would take it as an opportunity. I say, okay, everybody, let me show, cause I see the little cadet is having a tough time. So I say, hey, I get the big guy, and I would say, okay, so sometimes this can happen, and I'll start the string of techniques, and then the person is playing the drill. They're resisting the string. They're resisting this one. The combinations. They're playing the drill. So then I suddenly turn and I throw them with a judo throw, and typically I bury them. And as soon as they hit the ground, I immediately lock them, put pressure on them, where they're like, okay, 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 stop, 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 stop. It's like, okay, now here's an example of somebody who thought that they knew what was going to happen, but ultimately they didn't know.
Yeah.
And usually that big guy who was being kind of a turd to the other cadets is now very chill with the other cadets, because they just got put down in front of everybody in typically glorious fashion,
Yeah,
you know.
well, so this is a good time to talk about are you still doing the like the testing day at with the cadets at UT
Yeah.
off Texas UT Systems Police. So um, I want to maybe just explain a little bit about what it is you do with that police academy, and then I'll share a story there, because I'm pretty sure I fought that guy that you just described.
Well,
Those guys. There's every class has a few, I'm sure.
that's exactly right. Yeah. So what I do is right now, I think I don't know. I've been doing this for 15 years with those guys. I've been saying that for several years now. But
15 plus
now,
5.
yeah. So each academy right now, I do a 4-hour defensive tactics instructional block where it's just teaching only. That's it. We're not doing any fighting other than the impromptu fights that happen where, well, I'm having to show
Right.
someone how things actually come together. Um, so I do a 4-hour block, and then from there, now they've got it set up where it's just a few days later. Then we'll go in and do the no quit drill, and that's where we actually fight with them all. Now, the cool thing about UT Systems that a lot of people don't know is that they're the third largest police force in the state of Texas. They're behind DPS, which is number one, and then the uh, Texas Department of Wildlife, Parks and Wildlife.
Wow.
They're number two. And I think the Parks and Wildlife just took over UT by like
3 people or
I
something.
don't know, like 40 officers or something like that. But yeah, yeah, so they finally got the number two spot. But but yeah, UT is considered state police, and they have they've got the JJ Pickle research center. They've got biolabs protecting like all kind of stuff, medical hospitals, medical facilities.
There's a ton of DoD
So
research facilities that are embedded in UT systems.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, because I've been to a few places where you're looking around saying that's straight military stuff. It's
Yeah.
military stuff right there. So
Yeah. On
but
their they had actually on their website one time that there was like how much money came into it's like this is public knowledge, right? Like when you receive public dollars, you put how much public dollars you got, but like the UT systems, a big chunk of their annual budget was coming from government funding, because it's just research that's but it's protected research. I mean, it's sensitive, some of the sensitive things, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so that they need a police force that can protect that stuff.
Yeah. And so up until this point, my time that I do out there is all donated time. I don't get paid. I've never gotten paid. Which at one of the academies, it made some of the cadets upset to learn that that the time was donated. They were like, "What the hell do you mean you're not getting paid? UT's got money? Are you kidding me?" And it's like, well, hey, you know, I don't make these decisions, you know, but I feel that if I don't do it, some other person's going to come in with nonsense,
Right.
and they're going to teach you nonsense. So I would rather just do it and say, hey, I donate, you know, I'm donating the time, and I'll post pictures. I can't post videos, which is fine. And I do agree with not posting any instructional videos of anything we do, but
Yeah.
still shots, it'll be tough to get, you know, for people to figure out exactly what's going on
Yeah.
with a still shot. And they allow me to do still shots, as many pictures as I want. They're like, yeah, group pictures, doing techniques, fighting, whatever.
So,
It's fine.
so back in the day when I was there, you weren't doing any instruction there. It was just
Mm-hmm.
like the cadets were testing. It was like the final week of defensive tactics training.
Mm-hmm.
And the setup was they go do kickboxing, basically get the crap kicked out of them by another instructor. And then they would come over to the mats where we were for ground fighting, and we would typically start in a mounted position. So we'd get on the ground and a student would mount us, and then, you know, they're trying to subdue us, right? Now, the difference is in regular rolling is they have a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
Got a plastic firearm on. And so that changes the dynamic completely, right? Because they have to be cognizant of that thing that they have, and don't let us, the bad guys. And we were basically playing the bad guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
With them. And so I think I went and watched you guys one time. I was like, you know, early. I hadn't been around very long, so I just went and observed. And then the next time I went, and I got two students that were about my size, and it was, you know, it was kind of easy pickings, right?
Yeah.
Roll them off me, do it, you know, and then usually it's a rear naked choke. And that was, I always took pleasure in making sure it was slow, and you know, just to let the panic set in, because those are
That's
teaching moments that you have after, right? And these guys had no idea who we were. They just thought we were just jokers off the street, right?
yeah, yeah.
Showed up where there were the crappy clothes and ripped clothes from the last time we were there.
Yeah.
But the second time I went, I got another dude my same size. And the second guy though was this guy. I mean, he was a big burly dude, 300 pounds at least. And I saw him running up the hill because they would come running from fighting, right? He was running up the hill. I'm like, oh my lordy, this dude is big. And he got on top of me, and it was an ego check for me because it wasn't so easy, right? And all of
Mm-hmm.
where I could use my own strength and force to, you know, to transition to a better position for myself. When someone's that big and they're on you and they're strong themselves, and he was a wrestler. We chatted. He wrestled in high school and had gone into military, right? So he had a lot of experience. It was a significant challenge, and so I took away from there too is like, don't let because you know a few things get in your head and you think that you got it. Someone who has size and strength, you're really going to have to master the basics, you know, because I was new. I kind of had the basics, but I was still relying on some speed and some strength, and to get my, you know, I knew a little bit of a few things. But I
Mm-hmm.
left there with a complete ego check, right? And I remember looking over at you, and you were kind of laughing at me, like, "Oh yeah, that was a good struggle." But you know, I didn't want to. I had it in my mind, I can't let the school down. Like, you guys are going to smash me. And I had, when we were done, I had this like complete adrenaline dump. So I realized that I had been in panic mode when I was there, right? So this whole process of ego checking, it happens at multiple intervals and multiple places along your career, you know, your practice of martial arts, that it's this constant ego check. And even when you think you understand it, you know, like for me in that time, some joker rolls in there who's big and strong, and I'm gonna have to sort it out pretty quickly, right, to survive. And even so, I kind of went in panic mode a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, you never know, and that's kind of the other thing um, about working with those guys. You don't really, you know, we see them in the cadet class, but we don't really know their actual background. Sometimes Glenn will, sometimes he would point out somebody, and all he would really say is that person needs adjustment, you know. And I said, okay, I would rig the line so that I get that person so I could adjust them. But other than that, man, you never know who you're wrapping up with. I did one. Uh, what do they call it? They call it a lateral academy. So these are guys who have been in law enforcement for some period of time. They just hired on UT and they're going through an abbreviated academy. So I went out and at that time, I think Glenn was out of town on business. And so,
So describe who Glenn is.
yeah,
Right.
I just kind of threw him out there, but yeah, Glenn is one of my longtime training partners. We've been fighting since we were both brown belts. He was doing other martial arts and I was doing judo, but we cross trained a lot together.
Yeah.
Which what
You guys
people today would call
always
MMA.
cross training. Even I would roll in for a workout somewhere, and you're striking and ground fighting and all this, like, because he was a Taekwondo guy, I think.
Yep.
But he spent a lot of time in Jujitsu and Judo, and you spent a lot of time in striking with him, right? And so he's just a great pleasure to work out with, because you always had a good balance of stuff, and you guys were, and that's what I mean about the evolution of what you guys were doing. It was this constant growth because there was always this iron sharpening iron in the dojo there.
So yeah, Glenn. So Glenn had gotten into UT, and he was actually, I think he was like the director of the academy or something like that. And so, you know, he would have the cadets leading up to when I came in or when we came in. But yeah, he would just tell me, oh yeah, this person or that person needs uh, needs adjustment. But that would be all the direction he'd really give me, because he would just like to stand back and watch me do my thing. But going back to what we were talking about, not knowing, you don't really know who you're getting a hold of. So I did this lateral academy, and it was me and Mr. Ferrero, who was Glenn's instructor, and he's like the number two, maybe or number three guy at UT Systems Police, and
For
and
yeah, so you had Glenn, who was at the academy, it mixed in with this stuff. Mr. Ferrero, who is also Taekwondo, like, seasoned person, also employed at the academy, and then you, right? So this is just a great learning experience for first responders to, and law enforcement guys to have you at their sort of, training.
yeah. So we would so I did this class, and we went over the stuff. It was just me and Ferrero. Ferrero said, "Hey, I'm going to let you teach. I'm just here because I need to be here because we need to have some official staff here. But I'm going to let you do your thing, and I'm here to help if you need help." So okay. So I was teaching, did my thing. We did pressure points. We did all these different locks, and then Ferrero came and said, "Hey, by the way, I want you to teach weapon retention, just on the fly. You're going to do weapon retention now." Okay, we do weapon retention. So we did that, and he says, "Hey, okay, good. So I need you to come back tomorrow, and I need you to teach handcuffing." All right, I can do that. I've seen Glenn teach it enough times, and I know how to. I just know how to do it. I watch him. I know the mechanics, and no problem. So the next day, I came back, and there's these guys, and they said, "Man, so how long you been in law enforcement?" I'm not law enforcement. Well, you're military then. How long you been in the military? I didn't go to the military. What the hell, man? How the hell do you know all this stuff? So, well, yeah, I've been doing martial arts a long time, and and again, I'm trying to downplay stuff. I don't want to be like, oh, look at me, but it was very interesting because those guys, they they were just like they were impressed by the knowledge that I had, and even on the handcuffing, they were having a hard time with control handcuffing. And I said, "No, you need to hold it like this, and you get this position here and here." And I said, "But I thought you weren't law enforcement." I said, "No, but what I understand is body mechanics. I understand your vulnerability, your balance, basic things like that, and I can apply that to a whole wide range of things." Well, long story short, it turns out that one of those guys was 25 years retired FBI. Another one was retired LAPD. Another one was retired Houston PD. and they all had to do survey monkeys on the instructors. Every time they had an instructor, they did a survey on them.
Yeah.
And Glenn had told me after he come back into town, um, he when he came back, he came to class to training one night, and he said, "Man," he goes, "You're not going to believe these guys." And I said, "What?" I said, because he asked how the academy went, and I told him how Ferrero kept throwing in these monkey wrenches, on me, and Glenn laughed. He said, "Yeah, he likes to do that." But he goes, "But I'm going to tell you," he goes, "Do you have any idea the level of experience that was in that class?" I said, "No." I said, "I just thought they were cadets, like new to law enforcement, maybe had some exposure, but, I don't know." So he started going through all the different people and levels of experience that they've had. And he said, "You're not going to believe what they wrote." He goes, "Half those guys, almost, all the high level guys, all of them wrote in their deal that it was the best defensive tactics class that they had ever had. And they had verbally had told him, they said, "Look, why in the hell is this guy not getting paid?" And because some of them had asked me, they go, "Man, you must be," they had said something about getting paid or something, making good money off of teaching. I said, "Oh, no, no, no. No, I'm donating my time." I said, "I'm self-employed. I'm coming out because I love to do it. And you guys need the help, and you need to learn, solid stuff."
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. So they got together and they actually bought, because this was right around Christmas time, I think. I don't know, somewhere around there. But anyway, they got together and they pooled a bunch of money and bought gift card. They bought a gift card to PF Chang's for me and the kids to go eat.
Here's
Uh,
thank you.
yeah, yeah, and that was that was from the cadets. So
It's pretty cool.
that was super cool. It was super cool. But I really what I get out of it is, knowing that I'm farming, I'm planting these seeds, that there's more out there, and that it doesn't have to be getting your face kicked in every class or every training. Someone's like trying to break your knees
Right.
or, hurt you to try to show you something. That you can learn good things that are effective, and you can train it safely. There are people out there who are knowledgeable and willing to help you. And so that's another way that I look at a lot of this stuff is farming, not hunting. Hunting, you get your kill, you go back to camp, you eat it. Now you must go hunting again.
Mm.
Where farming is, you don't know when that seed is going to pop up. You don't know, how it may, you know, you know, fertilize somewhere else. You
Yeah.
just never know where that stuff comes back around.
Yeah, it's renewable, right?
It's renewable.
Yeah. What other things are you doing with law enforcement now? I know I was aware when I was in the Austin area, Round Rock area, that there were some, you were doing some work with law enforcement on your lunch break, and I don't even think you got paid very much for that either. I think guys were just showing up. But these are things that you do out of you're just interested in helping law enforcement out.
Yeah. So right now, what I do is I still do the UT thing. I had gone out to I was going out to help out Williamson County on occasion. I get invited out there by one of the guys who was a student. Um, and matter of fact, tomorrow I'm going out to Killeen to work with some law enforcement there. There's some people who are doing some BJJ, but it's like law enforcement only. And so I got in touch with those guys, and and so I'm going to go out and show them some stuff. And um, DPS, the Department of Public Safety for Texas, was doing a Thin Blue Line open mat to try to bring law enforcement people in to expose them to training and different things. And
Awesome.
it was really cool. I'm the only judo black belt invited to go. So the only way you could go to that open mat was if you were law enforcement, or if you were specifically invited And if you were invited, you had to be a jujitsu black belt that was of good quality, good control, good mindset, all those kind of things. And I told the person who set it up, I said, I'm not a BJJ black belt, right? And he said, yeah, but I've rolled with you. You're really good. You're super supportive, great control, blah, blah, blah. We want you to be there. I said, okay. And DPS actually gave me a custom made black belt with my name on it. Is super awesome.
That's great.
It was amazing. But
Yeah, that's awesome.
since COVID started, all of that stuff got shut down. But prior to that, I started doing a first responder Sunday here at the school. And first responders only, police, fire, EMS, because people don't know that fire and EMS, they fight with people every day.
Yeah, they're there sometimes before the police get there, right? And so they're dealing with these jokers sometimes.
Yeah, and they don't have they don't have guns and tasers and batons and stuff.
Right,
they got to go hands on.
Yeah, they're at risk. I mean, those guys are at risk for sure.
Yeah. So so I would do a first responder Sunday, and it's just those guys. We would do. Technically, it was 2 hours. It was not uncommon for us to go 3 or 4 hours, but I would do an hour of instruction ish, and then I would do an open training format where we could work on whatever, could do questions, what ifs, or fight if they want to fight. And so at the new gym, I have red and blue police strobes installed in the gym. So I kill all the lights and we'll fight with the red and blue strobes on, kick the music up louder. So it's, disorienting and
a little distracting.
Yeah. And so we'll do that. And I had a SWAT guy tell me, man, that was interesting. He said, it took me a couple of minutes to get adjusted, but after that I was fine. I said, well, a couple of minutes, you're dead. So
That's
good. It's better. It
only takes a few.
Better you train,
Yeah, no, that's great.
So one of the guys that I met at the open mat, he was with DPS. He was part of their training staff, and he really helped me get squared away to basically provide continuing education credits for TCOL, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement.
Oh yeah, great idea.
So now, and I'm fixing to start it back up. I think I wanted to do one at the end of the month. I may push it to the beginning of May, but I started right before COVID. I had started doing TCOL defensive tactics classes where it's a continuing education class. So the student would come in, they have to be law enforcement. You got to have a TCOL number. They come in, we would do our training, whether it's, 3 hours or 4 hours. We do the training. After they're done, they fill out a little survey, which is, a couple questions, real simple. And then I would email them all of the documentation that they would give to their training department to submit to TCOL for credit. And this gentleman was really, 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 really good at helping me get that stuff set up. And so now I'm pretty much the only school in the area that can do that,
Awesome.
which is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
now, it's funny because I talked to Ferrero and the UT staff, and I was talking to them about this process, and they said, well, look, Ferrero said, listen, you're a subject matter expert. You've been teaching out here under official capacity. We have you down. You've been teaching out here for, I don't know, 15 years, however many years. He said, so you've been doing it. You've been teaching commissioned and non-commissioned officers for a long time. So just that experience alone under our organization as an outside person, that easily can get you, the experience needed to be considered a subject matter expert is on top of your experience in the art and, your rank and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's very cool because the other instructors, other martial arts schools in the area, they teach to law enforcement, or they teach, they teach students that are law enforcement, but they do not teach to law enforcement. When a student comes in, they treat them just like any other student.
Right.
They don't say, hey, we're going to tailor your training for your job.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I do.
Yeah, that's what I saw that you guys were doing that I thought was really interesting, right? That when first responders came into your dojo or they were talking to you, it was all about, for them, it's a kind of a career issue, right? Like self-preservation and protection. And, for the average Joe like me, it's just a hobby. But really getting in that for them, and your willingness to go there and to think about, okay, well, gets back to the academy thing, right? You have a gun on your side. It changes the scenario a little bit. It changes the technique a little bit. And you guys were constantly adjusting what you do and how you teach based on those variables, right? Variable of having a firearm, variable of having someone intoxicated on you, variable of having, you're going to be in it with red and blue lights flashing like you're at a, Eastern Europe discotheque.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that really makes us really different, is that we can adjust so many of our techniques to really fit the application of the person that's there to learn, whether they're there for self-defense, they're there for competition, they're there for professionally, right? They're getting into, they work in a bad area, or they're doing undercover work or what have you. And how can, we would work different scenarios. And I'm actually fixing to, hopefully soon, I'm going to get to go to one of the local departments, and we're going to do a what if class, because they asked me. So my first TCOL class that I had one of the defensive tactics instructors in the area come to that class. And after because he was talking, he says, man, it just seems like you can just go anywhere. So he asked me if I was willing to do a what if class for the department, where officers come in and they just ask me, what if this, what do I do?
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, let's do it. Schedule it. We'll make it happen. These are the days I'm available, and I'm wide open on these days. Let's do it. And then Corona happened. So we're waiting for that to open back up through the city management. But we're still going to do it.
Chad, if someone's, if they're a law enforcement officer, or they're, plain Jane, average Joe, and they're thinking, hey, I want to do this, but, kind of scares me. It might be a little bit too hard, or, might be too physically demanding. What would you say to that? And then two, how do they go about getting a hold of you? And I'll put all your contact information in the show notes.
Yeah, no. So I didn't catch the last part of that question.
I was just basically saying, if someone is interested in getting involved in your dojo and martial arts, whether they be law enforcement or just a regular person, but they're concerned that it might be too hard. They're concerned that it might be too much damage to their body. We didn't kind of go into the details of like how gentle you guys are in how you train and practice. What would you say to that person who's thinking about it but isn't sure? And then, I'll put all your contact information in the show notes. Like, how do they go about finding you? Because I'm guessing you're still in the Round Rock area, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm still in the Round Rock. I'm right on the Round Rock Pflugerville line. We're kind of in a Bermuda Triangle of Round Rock, Pflugerville, Austin, where it all comes together in a little point,
Just playing with Cedar Park a little bit.
Yeah, but we really, that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have. They'll go online, they'll look at judo on YouTube and say, oh my God, there's no possible way I could ever do that without breaking my neck.
Sport judo with Olympic throws, and it's like force on force.
Yeah, exactly. I usually tell people, that we don't do that. That we start everybody off real slow. We're really gentle. We can be rough with you if need be, but I don't want that kind of environment in the school as far as new people coming in, because uh, we want you to learn how to do the techniques before we have you fight. Where a lot of schools, they'll just have you fight on day one. If you go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, you're fighting on day one. You don't even know how to tie your gi properly, and you're fighting somebody on day one. We don't really do that. And if we do, the person you're fighting will probably be me or one of the advanced guys, and they're going to be under very strict rules. And I do watch that very closely. But yeah, folks don't have to be in great shape. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I have to get in shape first before coming." That's a misnomer for what we do. I recently had a student, not recent. He's been here a couple of years now, but he stopped smoking, I think, a week or two before coming. His nephew brought him, and he says, "Oh man, my lungs," And I said, "Hey, look, no problem. Take as many breaks as you need. As far as I'm concerned, you can take 15-minute break, 5 minutes work, 15-minute break, 5 minutes work. I don't care, because that's just for now." And he used to not be able to make it through class. He was probably taking 15-minute breaks probably every 10 minutes. Now he can go through class like no problem. And I'm 48. I have a new student who just joined actually this week, who's 51. His daughter is here too. She's 13. And we have the whole, range of, from teens and up in here, and all body types, all experience levels, all levels of fitness. Because one thing that you will do is you'll lose weight and you'll get fit for sure. But we don't push it. I have another student. Before she moved to Texas, she was 350 pounds. And, now she's down, I think she says she's down to 170.
Wow.
180. And she loves it here. She was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in California, came here. She tried some other schools, found us, and she quit the other schools, and she's here. And so really the only thing you got to do is walk through the door. That's it.
Yeah.
Just walk through the door.
I'll say that I think when I was describing how I first met you guys, I was really cautious because I didn't want to roll into, I'd been into some BJJ gyms before where it's just, the learning was minimal, but the pain was optimal, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm coming from a sports psychology background where I want to learn the proper way to do something first so that I can start mapping that in my muscle. And then I can start working on speed and, the other pieces that go with that. And that's that's really why I was cautious and why the ninjas weren't working. But when I saw what you guys were doing, that's when I just finally said, like, this is the right place. You guys are teaching the right way. And you have the right dose. And the thing is, if you're a little bit more advanced and you walk into your dojo, you're going to find what you need there too, because you're going to have those advanced, as I progressed along, I started working with more advanced students, but it's not a one-stop, it's not a, one size fits all, in the sense that you're going to learn everything that we teach regardless of how it is. You really do customize it for each student. And I've seen that over and over and over with every new student that walked through your door when I was there. It really is customized. And everything you did with law enforcement. Someone walked in to work out and they happened to be a cop and they told you they were a cop. It was a little bit different attention paid to them. And not that it took away from anyone else, but it was like, hey, these are things that you need to think about. We're going to teach you this skill, but if you're going to use it at work, this is the nuance that you need to take into consideration. And that I appreciated how you guys did that.
Yeah, it's and that's again, that's one of the things that really makes us special. Because as people as people go to other gyms and I see them, they come here and they say, yeah, I was at this BJJ school. We have a 1 hour class, 15, 20 minutes of it is warm up. We do like calisthenics, we do this and that. Then we'll work one technique. We might get to do it 10 times, maybe. Maybe we get to do it 10 times on each side, but usually only get to do it 10 times. Then we fight. And I said, yeah. I said, so if you map your time out, that's why it takes you 10 years to get a black belt.
Right.
You don't touch that technique for maybe 2 years. I mean, that's ridiculous, where, we have longer classes too. I mean, our classes are 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
Saturdays we're here. I don't know. We're here like 5, 6 hours on Saturday. But we focus on the technical component because, like Sensei used to say, when you join the military, they don't give you gun and bullets and say run that way. Just go that way and shoot them. You go through basic training. They show you how to load the gun, how to shoot the gun, what to do. And this is kind of the same thing. And we can fight with people when they're new, but we really focus on, we want to teach them first, because then it takes the fear away, at least a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very, very different. And you're right. We completely customize it to what the student is wanting. And it's not uncommon for me to run a class where I have this group over here is doing law enforcement. These folks over here are doing, self-defense.
Yeah.
And these over here are doing some competition, and everyone else is doing other stuff. It's more work for me, but I do that frequently. And to me, it's not hard because I don't know. It just isn't, I guess. I don't know, but that's not, you just don't see classes like that at most schools that I've ever been to, or that students have told me about that they've gone to. This is nothing like anywhere that they've been. Everyone is treated same everywhere else. And when you get into the BJJ community, yes, it's a lot of pain up front. And then with that is a lot of injuries, tons of injuries, where we have very, very few injuries. Even judo schools have high injuries because of the force on force sport,
that sort of,
win at any cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw in Colorado when I was there. I was like, wow, these guys, and everyone was hurt. Everyone was patched up, bandaged up. And and they're, they can't do half the throws because they're injured.
Yeah.
And so what's the point of that? At some point you have to, why are you there? If you're there to learn something and to grow, and you're just all banged up all the time, it's, probably not meeting your goals.
Right.
As we come to the end of our time here, Chad, is there anything that you want to impart, any knowledge that you want to share that I maybe haven't asked you about or talked about?
Well, the one thing that I'd really like to express is that the biggest thing about judo is that traditional judo is not just throws. People think that judo is only throwing. That's only 50% of the art. The other 50% is on the ground. And a lot of people, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and let me tell you, BJJ, that's only ground fighting. And ground fighting is super fun. Love it. It's super fun.
Yeah.
But in all reality, people say, people in the BJJ community say, oh, this is the most realistic self-defense martial art. Well, in their opinion, yes. My opinion, I don't think so, because you never see them fighting with 2 people. You never see them fighting with 3 people. It's always a one-on-one fight. And if you go to the ground and there's multiple people, you're done. If there's a second person with a weapon, you're done. And it doesn't even have to be an adult. You can be fighting with an adult, and a 10-year-old kid can come kick your melon into the goalpost.
Yeah.
And uh, so at its very core, everything works off of balance. Balance, you have no leverage, no power, your technique means nothing. So in terms of old judo originally intended, the way he originally intended judo to be, this is what we do. We do throws, we do ground, self-defense, weapon disarms, we do different things. And that's all under the judo and traditional jiu-jitsu.
So say that last piece again that you just said. I missed it and lost you for a second.
Oh no. So I was saying that, that a lot of people believe that jiu-jitsu is, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu is the same, that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is only ground fighting, and it's not jiu-jitsu. And people that say, well, Brazil speak Portuguese, and the term jiu-jitsu is Japanese. So how does that work? And why do they use names? So, people are trying to, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu community is trying to redefine the term to make it their own, and it's not.
Yeah.
I always designated BJJ or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as it's called, but never just Jiu-Jitsu. So as people are looking, understand exactly what you're getting, and, do your historical research.
Yeah, I think that gets lost. And you said it early on that judo is born from jujitsu, which is a samurai art, a samurai warfighter, and everything else is sort of these spin-offs of it. Judo being one of those things. And then the problem with judo is it's morphed into this tournament style point system, right? Where you don't even have nawaza, that doesn't even have ground fighting. It's not even played into it. So it just feeds more into this BJJ side that there's, to that argument.
Yeah. But it's so sad.
It is sad. It's sad. It's something that judo is, the sport side of judo is causing this death, if you will, of the whole art of nawaza, the whole ground part of judo. And it gets framed, judo gets framed in these Olympic style of judo, and that's really not judo. That's like maybe a third of judo.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. It's about a third.
Yeah. So what you're seeing in the Olympics is not real judo. It's one very narrow point system of it. And maybe the analogy is going to a BJJ tournament isn't anything like watching an MMA fight, right? With someone who's doing BJJ, or who's primarily a BJJ guy who's in an MMA fight. They're going to do a whole lot of other things that they wouldn't be able to do in a BJJ tournament. But you don't frame the BJJ mixed martial artist as, oh, he can only do these things, right? Or it's only this kind of skill. And it's a confusing, the tree starts to break off of jiu-jitsu, it becomes confusing. But I think it's important, the point you made, it's important to know that judo really is a lot more than what you see in the Olympics, if you will.
Yeah. And that's one of my big goals for, what it is that we're doing here, is to change the perception of what judo is. I didn't know what it was when I met Sensei, and I'm, my perspective is from his teaching, as well as my own research, my own study. But yeah, I really want to showcase what judo is supposed to be, what judo should be, what it was intended to be, as well as what Sensei Model has been able to do with his, evolution of it, I guess is what you could call it. But that's to me, that's my goal, is to really show people what judo really is. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and constantly having conversations with people, trying to educate them. And so that's the big thing that I'm constantly having to fight with folks. I say fight, you know, is telling them, no, we're doing judo. What we did right there, that's judo. Yes, you see it in BJJ, but it came from judo. Here's a Japanese name.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It was jujitsu at some point, right? And it's just
Exactly. Yeah, and two, it's like, and I tell people, I'm like, look, jujitsu is Japanese. It's been around way before the Gracies were even born. Now, unless you want to tell me Grandpa Gracie was some time traveler and he went and taught the Japanese so he could come back and learn from Maeda, okay. But
well, I think why sort of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became so popular was it's the very thing that you guys are doing, right? That they adapted to current situations. They weren't kind of tied up in this dogma of, well, that's because of the way we've always done it. Mm-hmm. And there's value, in this is partly probably where some judo dojos got left behind, if you will. But that's why it grew. In my mind, that's where it grew from, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But just I think what we're talking about here is just a general awareness of what these are and what they aren't. And some people might frame judo as being something that it actually isn't, because we're just thinking of it from the sport specific piece. I always cringe when I'm watching an MMA fight and someone says, "Oh, this is a judo player here." Because I'm in my mind, I'm like, well, what kind of judo player are we talking about? Someone who knows all of the thirds, or someone who just comes from this one third? Because then they get tossed and themselves, or they ends up on the ground and they're not quite as astute on the ground as someone who's in BJJ, because they've never trained Nawaza. They've never trained on the ground. They've just all been throwing, and it's never been important in their entire judo career. It's all about the point of the throw. It's not about, and in fact, I think the point system in judo now is such that it's not even worth going to the ground. You get like no. They've even changed it worse in I think recent years.
Yeah, no. Matter of fact, when people say they want to do a judo competition, I steer them away from it. I said, no, let's go do a BJJ competition instead, because we can simply do more. In judo, you can't touch below the belt without being penalized. That's ridiculous. That's the most ridiculous thing. And, and some rules I understand. It's for fighter safety, or, you don't want to paralyze a guy. I get it. But, so when people say, hey, I'm interested in competing, I usually say, well, you should entertain doing a BJJ competition, because we can simply do more. And by the way, all these things we do in class, shoulder locks and, certain chokes and grabbing the legs and all these, by the way, you would be penalized for that in judo. Yeah. You put two hands on one side for more than 5 seconds. Yeah. You're penalized. Yeah. 3 penalties, you lose the match. It's that simple. We would be DQ'd in no time, I
realized that early on with you guys, that I think sometimes you'll simulate a match, right? And I'm like, well, this isn't even any fun. I'm not even having any fun here. And as much as I like to compete, I never entered a judo tournament because of that. I'm like, this isn't the spirit of what jiu-jitsu is, right?
Now, when we occasionally do have guys that just insist, I want to do a judo competition. Hey, I'm going to go do this competition. I'll say, okay, fine. And the amount of preparation we do is usually about the week prior to the competition. And it's more or less, hey, don't do these things, and here are the rules. And that's about the extent of it. And so it's kind of cool, because when the guys go, they typically take first or second place, like almost every time. If it's not first, it's second. And I mean,
because they've mastered the basics, I'm sure.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, before COVID, about a year before COVID, so a couple of years ago, I had a student go to the San Antonio, the Alamo Classic. He went as a orange belt, They put him in the black belt division because they didn't have enough people. And they said, "Hey, do you want to fight black belt or we could refund your money?" He said, "No, I'm gonna fight. I'm here to fight." He won the black belt division.
Wow.
They put him in the he fought in the open division as well, which is anybody v anybody. He took second place in the open division. He lost against a wrestler who was an Olympic alternate. And what nobody knows is that he pulled his groin and sprained his ankle, like a severe sprain, 2 weeks before the competition. So he went and he fought, and that was on the same leg. So he went and fought, took first place in the black belt division as an orange belt with a pulled groin and sprained ankle, fighting dudes who do nothing but train for competition judo.
Mm.
And, you know, and it's just kind of like
that. Yeah, that's the point I was making about that place I visited in, you know, in Colorado. I'm not going to say where, but
that's okay. I think I know. I probably know where.
yeah. I mean, they were all good. They were all good guys, and it's just
No.
it was something different than I was interested in, right? And you know, probably didn't have as a dojo, probably didn't have practical applications outside of the sport of judo, and that's what I wasn't about. The sport of judo. It was about how can I use this in my day-to-day life. Well,
the martial arts family is an amazing family, and the folks that I've met and have remained friends with, have been very close friends with, have all been part of the judo and martial arts family. And you know, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, I mean, the people that I meet, and it's just amazing people, like I said, that would become lifelong friends. And you know, there's not a whole lot of places you can do that with the kind of diversity that we get here. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's just truly amazing. You know, doesn't matter when you're on the mat. It doesn't matter what your position is at your work. Doesn't matter what zip code you live in, what your income is. You know, none of that matters. Your political belief doesn't matter. Doesn't matter your religion. Nothing matters.
Yeah, because someone sticking their elbow across your face and pushing your jaw into the mat, it doesn't matter who you are. It's still an elbow.
That's right. It's universal discomfort.
Yeah. Or, you know, like my favorite thing was always to just be like suffocate my own clothing. That's a great one, right? Not that, you know, you're breathing hard and then Chad manages to stick your clothing in your mouth. Thank you, Chad.
Well, you know, I've got a girl, Police Jackie. We call her Police Jackie. She's a Cedar Park officer, but she likes her favorite thing is to stick her elbow in my eye socket as she's when she's on top, and she's
good.
Right.
I'm sure you
like,
deserve it.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm like, oh my God, that's so painful. But I tell her, I say, hey, it's okay. You can do whatever you want to me. It's fine. You know, it's fine. You can do what you want. You know, you're an officer, and you can do what you want. It's okay. Probably don't do that to everyone else. I don't know that they can mentally handle it. But yeah, no, it's something that's truly amazing about all this, is just the people that we get connected with, and it's truly amazing.
Yeah. Chad, thanks so much for coming on. It was an awesome conversation. This is probably the longest podcast I've ever done.
I'm sorry.
No, God, we could just talk for another 2 hours.
I know.
30 stories I wanted to talk about and things to ask you. Probably have to do another one. Go into the future. And thanks for kind of the close out there of explaining. I think we lost connection a little bit, but explaining that what, you know, the differences between judo and what you guys are doing and jujitsu. And like I said, I'll put in the show notes how people can contact you. And I just want to thank you again for being such a big influence in my life. Both you and Sensei Model were the right place at the right time for me. My only regret is that I left that area, and I can't tell you how many times throughout my weeks that I'm just grateful that I came across you guys. I'm grateful that I met you. I'm grateful that I have this ongoing friendship with you. and that I do have some regrets that I left, and that I don't have the opportunity to work with you guys. Because I think if you're in the Round Rock area, you're in the Austin area, and you're interested in martial arts, you're interested in judo or jiu-jitsu, and you're not going to see you guys, you're man, it's a missed opportunity, and it's not like, you're going to get that experience anywhere else. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, and your friendship means so much, and yeah, I know you had to go from, work was calling
Yeah.
when you
A lot
had
of
to,
shit calls.
yeah, but but no, I mean, again, it goes back to the relationships, right? I mean, this is the look what judo has done for both of us.
Yeah.
We made this incredible connection, and I mean, I tell stories about you all the time, talk about you all the time in a positive way, nothing bad, I promise. But when I showed when we found you on YouTube, and I got to show my daughter, because she didn't get to meet you guys. She was
It was real
born,
little
dude.
when I left. Yeah.
Yeah. And so getting to show her you and getting to listen to you, she was so excited. Oh my God, that's him. I said, that's Gabe. So it
Okay.
was it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And love you guys to death, really.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all are just truly amazing people. And I just can never say enough good about you guys. I mean, truly, and I miss you dearly. It's bad. So
It goes cuts both ways. I want you to keep
yeah.
a notepad in your pocket, right? Some sort of thing to write on. So as these as some topics come to your head, because I know they will. I know how you think. You're right? Things that you think are important to talk about, right? Write those down, and we'll do a second, because we could have another 10,000 conversations here
Oh yeah.
about. I didn't get as deep into the relevance between judo and wellness, and judo and life, and I hopefully there was enough, from the people that I know that are listening to this, that they'll take away some of those things. But there are so many parallels between what goes on the mat and what happens in life, that I don't want to miss the opportunity to draw those parallels for people.
This is the Foxhole Podcast.